Hello, welcome to another RHLSTP this week with the amazing Daniel Sloss. Thank you to everyone who has been watching these on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/rkherring every Wednesday night if you want to see them, especially if you've been linking your Amazon Prime and Twitch Prime accounts and giving us £5 every single month. Don't forget to resubscribe if you're doing that. It's pretty easy to do. There is a video on YouTube if you are confused. If you would also like to pay us back for the 5 months or so of free content we've been giving out on Twitch, we are launching a couple of Kickstarters. One of them is live now. It's a stone clearing based Kickstarter, rhlstp.co.uk/Kickstarter. You can just make a donation or you can get loads of cool rewards, including Cub Scout style stone clearing badges, a stone clearing guide, an amazing witch's finger or witch's dick gathered from the field by myself, t-shirts, and all sorts of other things. Go and check out that rhlstp.co.uk/Kickstarter if you feel like donating. All the money will go towards either making the merchandise or making new podcasts and internet content for you. We're trying to put out as much stuff as possible for you. Do check out our Twitch channel. There's Ali and Herring's Twitch of Fun on Thursdays. There's Snooker on Mondays and sometimes Tuesdays, and RHLSTP most Wednesday nights. Anyway, let's sit back, relax, and enjoy RHLSTP with the wonderful Daniel Sloss. Hello, please welcome a man who's just finished writing his book, first draft. Shut up. Hello, it's me, Richard Herring, and welcome to yet another of our live streamed Richard Herring's Licking Shaven Tushes podcast, it's called today, because I was listening to my guest today, an interview where he talked about shaving his arse for a long time, and so that's and eating arses and stuff. That's what young people do these days. We will not be talking about that. It's disgraceful. We might talk about it a bit. But I was hanging around with the Oompa Loompas. Have I never done the Oompa Loompas for this book before? From Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. The others, they're great guys. If you die, they sing a little song about you. They're a lot of fun. They call it RHLSTP, so I don't know if that's going to catch on. We'll see if the cool kids start doing that. So what's been going on? Not that much. I've been writing a book. I don't know if I'm allowed to I don't know if I've been given permission to say what it is or what it's about. I have occasionally mentioned it on podcasting in my blog. It's about International Men's Day, so it's about masculinity. It's called When's International Men's Day? 19 novel questions. Do you get it? We should be asking about masculinity, and the one I hope we will never be asked again. Don't tell anyone yet, because it's not out yet. It should be out in November, but it's a big relief. I've been working for 100 days on this book through lockdown, whilst simultaneously trying to parent my children, which I should be doing anyway, obviously, but not all the time, and teach them and stop them. My son threw a tractor, my daughter tonight, hit her in the head. It was a whole thing. So it's been difficult, but we've got to the end of the first draft. I think there's still some work to do. Again, masculinity is a subject I know my guest has been covering, so there may be some more discussion of that as we go on tonight. I'll just say, if you're enjoying the Twitch channel, you can, of course, remember you can, if you're with Amazon Prime, you can give us £5 every month for at no cost to yourself. Ian Amazon just gives that money. He takes £1.50 back, but you can give us £5 a month just by linking your accounts. If you go to YouTube, Herring1967, there's a very easy description there on a video, which will help you do that. We're also doing snooker. That's starting up again. Excitingly, Me1 versus Me 2 snooker for the people watching this on Twitch, not you at home on podcast. I mean, you're all at home. Not if you're on the podcast. On Monday, the 4th of July, on that Comedians at Home in lockdown, whatever it's called, on BBC Two, I will be playing myself at snooker on national TV. It's the dream. I've been paid. I've already got the money. I'm a professional self-playing snookerist. My wife said it would never happen. It doesn't make any sense. They wanted it recorded. They got in touch. They rang up and said, we need this It was like right at the beginning of lockdown. They said, we need this by the weekend, maybe Monday. And so I did it straight away, and I got to them on the Thursday. And then it's been 100 days. Why did they make me rush it? The house on the picture that they put out is not my house, by the way. So don't think it is. They put a picture of a house up at the start. It's not my house. My house is much nicer. No, it's not. Anyway, look, Upper Crust is going bust. Apparently, I had no idea that was still going. It's such a 20th century place. I'll be sad to see it go, though I thought it had gone already. Anyway, I think we're nearly there. So, is there anything I was going to introduce my co-host. my new co-host. This is mainly for people watching the video. This is Ali. Hello, you motherfuckers. I think I'm getting pretty good at ventriloquism. That's my belief over the course. Shall I just have him ask all the questions? Hello. What? Have you ever tried to suck your own cock? No, I haven't. You're a liar. I know you have. This is the ventriloquist dummy that Stuart Lee attempted to masturbate me with in 1987 in a Masonic lodge in Edinburgh. I could get that fucker me too. I'm gonna get him. If I just go, if I can just delete all the bits where I've been joking about it and just go, yeah, you touched my. That's bad, isn't it, Stuart Lee? Anyway, let's meet our guest today. It was all just harmless fun. My guest today is probably best known for playing Lawrence Kirk in Muff. That's why we're all here today, to see that guy who did that. It's Daniel Sloss, ladies and gentlemen. There he is, Daniel Sloss. Hey. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I mean, I don't think any of us are doing well.
How's it been the lockdown for you? We're just saying beforehand you finished your tour more or less, but it's kind of derailed your 2020 plans somewhat.
Yeah. Like I just finished, did an 18-month tour ages ago. It finished in December. It was all the way around the world, and then in January it was meant like me calming down a bit, and then slowly get back into work around February, March to tour Australia. And then I would have a relaxing middle of the year, and then the Fringe would happen, and then things would continue on as normal. And then that decided to not happen, so I've lost all sense of self-worth, don't know who I am anymore, and I'm slowly losing my mind.
I mean, you work very hard. I work pretty hard as a comedian. I usually used to do a new show every year. You travel the world. You do these shows all over the world. You do a new show every year. Was it true that your Edinburgh show this year was called Hubris?
Yes.
That's somewhat ironic.
Yeah, yes.
It's not happening.
Well, no, see, this is the thing I was very excited to bring up with you, because I'm a big fan of yours, and you have a record that I am desperate for. Right. You've done, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you've done, how many Fringes in a row have you done?
I'd say, I don't think it was, I think there was always a couple out, so I think probably the most I did in a row might have been 14 or 15, something like that. So I think you might. You're nearly there. You're not quite there. You're too young.
See, this will be my, I think my 12th, and the problem with it is, obviously, there's no Fringe this year.
Yeah.
I still might be able to perform in Edinburgh during August at the venue I was going to do anyway. Okay. Depending on, so I
does
might
that
be
count?
Of course it fucking counts.
Does that count?
Of course it counts. What do you mean does it count? I absolutely count it. It's in Edinburgh. It's during the month of the Fringe. We don't call it August. It's Fringe month. You know what it is. And hopefully I'll be going for my 13th year this year.
Okay. So, and you'll be the only one. So there's been a lot of people who've had that ripped away from them. So if you go, you've ruined it for everyone else. If you manage to keep the Fringe going on your own.
Yeah, and then...
So you're literally going to do it every day? You're going to perform it every day? Is that the idea, or just once?
Whatever's safest, man. Whatever they let us do. Like, we don't know. For me, just the concept of getting back on a theatre stage and stuff is just so exciting. I'm desperate for it.
Well, it must be possible. I don't quite understand, I think we mentioned this last week, but why cinemas are opening and clubs aren't. I mean, the cinema's exactly the same as a club, I would have thought. I suppose there's a bit more bar action in a club, but doesn't have to be.
I think if they're able to do it in cinemas, just put on a comedy gig in a cinema.
Yeah.
And just go, right, same rules, same rules. Yep. You said it was fine. The only difference is I'm not doing it on that big fucking screen.
Or maybe we could do it. You could just do it in a different room and put yourself up on the screen. Listen to the response through the wall. It might work. It might work. Well, and bingo's allowed to go on. So, people were discussing that, whether you'd be able to call the numbers and then do a joke in between. You know, if it's... there's no difference between
COVID-19.
Yeah,
19.
19. If it's a film, if it's a funny film, if they're worried about people spluttering with, I don't think films are as funny as stand-ups, though, right? I don't think you don't get many films where people are really literally rolling and head shaking in the aisle. So maybe that's the thinking. But just put shit comedians on.
Yeah,
who won't make you laugh that much. I thought they could run the clubs, but you had to go to a comedian you didn't like. So it'd be a way of keeping it going.
Yeah.
So I'd go and see whoever. I'd go and see Stuart Lee and sit there, but he would still get paid, and the theatres would still make money, and nobody would get into trouble because no one was laughing. So it could work.
I think
you may call me a dreamer.
I think it's what at the moment, anything that works, anything that could get us performing again, I would be willing to do. Well, to some extent, that's not true. But there's the more I think about it, there are some gigs that you could offer me right now, and I'd go, I can happily not gig for another couple of months. Like if you were to offer me a gig in Kilmarnock, I'd be like, I can live until 2030 without performing again. There's some places you just don't need to go back to.
Because I think I haven't been doing. I mean, I've been doing the podcast, but I haven't been doing that much stand up, so I haven't really experienced. I think my wife talks about this when I've been on tour a lot and I stopped performing for a month, that I become very difficult to deal with. But I've been okay because I haven't been performing all that much. But most comedians I've talked to have said they're fine and they're not. But I think it's you're like an addict, a laughter addict. You're getting the adrenaline rush, and you're actually getting your brain flooded with the same chemicals as drugs do. And so, have you had withdrawal effects from not having that experience?
Richard, I'm losing my mind. I don't know who I am anymore. Like I had this tour that I did for 18 months it was Japan, it was Australia, it was fucking Russia and America and all this stuff. And I was gigging every single night doing this show, and here he is, it's Daniel Sloss, anywhere between fucking 200 people and 3,000. They say your name. They fucking 18 months in a row. I was told I was the most important thing in the world. Every single day, I had that narrative confirmed in my mind from a room full of strangers that had loved and adored me. And then me, who'd been pining for all this time off for so fucking long, after this 18-month tour, I survived a month of it, and now I'm just going, what do I do? Like you write books, you've got your podcast, you're a father of two beautiful children, you've got other things, man. I don't know. I've been slowly discovering who I am, and I'm not necessarily a fan of them.
I think it's hard for. Are you isolating alone? Are you with a partner or with a family? Or?
Yeah, so I lived with my girlfriend, and we had our other flatmate. He's just away for a bit. So I've been in a house of about anywhere between 3 and 5 people. So it's been good. But my girlfriend has a real job, and she's working at home from 9 to 5. So I think it's really not hard for her. But like what would normally happen pre-COVID was I would wake up when she woke up, and I would wake up and I'd make her a packed lunchbox because I'm adorable. And I'd make her a packed lunch, and I'd give her it, and I'd kiss her on the cheek, and I'd get back into bed, and I'd wake up at 1, and I'd play computer games, and then she'd get home at 6, and she'd go, busy day. And I'm like, oh, the busiest. Oh, just, you won't believe it, swept off my feet. Whereas now, I come downstairs and wake up at the same time, I make her breakfast and stuff like that, and then I just wander around, just not knowing. Because I struggle to relax now, because normally if I just had time off from a tour, if it was between 2 tours, I could smoke weed 24 hours a day, play computer games, and not feel guilty about anything. But because I'm unemployed, I've got this anxiety all day of you should be doing something. You should be, you're useless. You're not doing all these things. And it's been a real struggle. She's been helping me with it a lot. Just sort of going, hey, there's nothing to do. That's it. There's just nothing you can do at the moment. But no, man, to be honest, I've struggled with it at points. I'm getting better at it, and I'm learning to deal with it. But it's been a fucking shock.
Is it possible? See, this isn't something I've had to think about being a respectable father. Is it possible to get drugs during lockdown? Is that service still available?
Man, yes, it is. And what? So I've had some. For me, it's about trying to find structure so I don't lose my mind. So there's been days where I'm like, I'll get up, I'll do this, and then there's been other days where I've just texted my dealer and I'm just like, you know what, just go and bring me some acid, and I'll just have a day. And I've got nothing else to do. I might as well just take a little bit of acid, walk around my garden, and talk to some trees. Which is good because it's spiritual in a way, and it allows you to self-reflect a bit. But getting in it's really hard to do the drug deals because he's like, get in the car, and you're like, especially at the start of lockdown, I was like, I can't get in the car. It's like getting in to buy drugs from a stranger, but I'm still wearing a mask while in the car, being like, this is not safe. This is not safe.
Yeah. Don't do drugs, kids.
No, absolutely don't.
Daniel Sloss is a fictional character and is unable to get the bad effects of doing that. So let's talk about MUFF Muff. What was that? What was that? It's on your IMDb page. Lots of comedians in it.
Yeah, so basically 6 or 7 years ago, I think, me and Tom Stade decided that it was too hard to get a television show made by all the big TV production companies. They always want to put their fingers into your idea, mix up your idea, and they would take your idea and they'd make it worse over time. And we didn't like that process, so we were like, fuck it, we'll do it ourselves. And it turns out you need those people, Richard. Turns out they're very important, and the process is hugely crucial to the writing process. It was
maybe just one to say don't call it muff. I think might have been all it needed.
Might have been. Man. It was,
what did muff stand for? It was MUFF. What did it stand for?
Didn't stand for everything. That was the joke. One of the lines in it was like MUFF. It doesn't stand for anything. It's like the BBC. It doesn't stand for anything.
Okay.
That was one of the only things that translated as a joke in it. It was just a chance for us to me and people that I really liked, and just to see what we could do. And it was a learning process, and I learned a lot. And it was that I'm not the best at writing. And that if you want to film 6 episodes of something, don't do it with a quarter of the budget and half the time.
Yeah, I did something with As It Occurs to Me. I got a budget of $100,000 together to try and make 6 episodes, and it's too much. It's still much too little.
$100,000. We got 5.
Did you? Yeah,
yeah.
But $100,000 wasn't. I did it through Kickstarter, and it was very. Thank you to everyone who contributed. I think it was okay, but you just realise how. Yeah, it's the time. I was writing it for free, so I wasn't getting paid for writing. I don't think, but so that's the thing. You need the time to sit down and write it properly. And I think when you're trying to do something quickly, sometimes it can work, sometimes it can't. The other potential credit I was going to pick up on, which I have heard you talk about on another podcast now, just the last minute. You were on Robot Wars, right?
Yes.
When you were before you were. When you were a child. I mean, you were a child when you started doing comedy as well, but even before then.
Yeah.
So tell me about Robot Wars, because that's very exciting.
Oh, man. So, I mean, this is OG Robot Wars, back when Craig Charles hosted the original season. Me and my dad watched it on TV, and just one of those bonding moments where, man, it was gladiators, but with robots. And for my nerd dad, he was like, this show is brilliant. So him and all of his nerd mates at work, they were like, we've got to enter in on this show. So they entered it like 3 or 4 times, and they did quite well. In season 2, they were on the robot had to be like 100 kilo max, right? Yeah. So a lot of people would go, okay, so we're going to put an axe on it, and we're going to have that go down. The axe is about 20 kilograms, got to do enough damage. So they would lose a lot of weight to the weapons of what they were using. Whereas my dad and his friends, a bunch of like nerds and psychopaths, were like, just put all of the weight into motors, right?
Yeah.
Because, man, it doesn't matter if you've got an axe. If I hit you at 30 miles an hour, your thing's dead. Doesn't matter what robot you build. If I hit it at 30 miles an hour, it's fucking dead. And that was their plan. And it worked for the entire... anything they plowed through. They still hold the record. There was one part in Robot Wars, I don't know if people can remember, but the house robot called Matilda. She looked like a triceratops. She had a chainsaw on the back. She had little flippers on the front. In season 2, there was a thing called Joust. So it was like she came up one side, you came up the other, and there was a arena that you had to try and push her off or stay on for as long as you could. And she weighed twice as much as any other robot because she was a house robot. And my dad's robot took it off in 3 seconds because it went at 30 miles a fucking hour through this thing. But we got our asses kicked when we started fighting other robots. Our lack of weapon didn't work in our favor.
You could just run away, though, if you're going at 30 miles an hour. Just exhaust the others until they run out of petrol or whatever they operate on. Batteries, I suppose.
Man, some of them. It was man. As a kid, it was the best place in the world to be because it was in an aircraft hangar, right?
Okay.
And it's just all these fucking nerds, man, and they've got all these amazing robots, and there was such a sense of community because it was. Every single person in this aircraft hangar had been bullied all the way through their childhood, and they were just in an aircraft hangar of their own people, man. It was like, this was nerd culture before nerd culture. This was before it might not have been before Comic-Con. But it was, I loved it as a kid. I got an extra week off of school because 1 week my dad's robot got knocked out, and the reason it got knocked out is because he had a weapon on it that was illegal. He'd gotten the diamond-encrusted blades that they use on oil rigs for getting through miles and miles of rock, and he just stuck that to the front of a robot, had it spinning backwards, and we're like, fuck it, that'll win. So we take it to Glasgow for the tryouts, and the robot we're against has to be swept off of stage. Destruction happens. But that was when it was in Glasgow, so it was the Glasgow crew doing it. They're like, that's fine. We then go to London. We rev the thing up backstage, and one of the health and safety people, they put my dad in a bulletproof fucking chamber to start it. And the second it started going, health and safety were like, honestly, we don't know how you got this. This is illegal to own. You can't stick with this. We've only got this much perspex. If this goes through rock, this will kill everyone in that fucking arena if it goes wrong. So we weren't allowed to use the weapon. So we were then knocked out in the first round. I was distraught, and 10-year-old me sobbing into the shoulder of Philippa Forrester. She was very kind about the whole thing. But then they gave my dad a job for a week.
Right.
Because they're just nerds are the best people in the world. They were like, "Hey, that's too soon. It wasn't your fault you lost. Why don't you come drive the house robots for a bit?" And yeah,
I mean, that could have been a different. I mean, if it had gone into the audience and killed a lot of nerds, that would have been a very different start to your. I wonder what to your life. As long as you survived the massacre, that would be a cloud hanging over your life, wouldn't it? If your father had murdered some children and nerds.
Yeah, but imagine the Fringe show, Richard.
Well, there'd be a good for it eventually.
Imagine the narrative.
My dad was the Robot Wars massacreist. I wondered how your 11th birthday was.
I didn't find out for 3 days.
Oh, did you not?
No. So for those that don't know, my birthday is 9/11, September the 11th. It was actually 11/9 since we're in the UK. My birthday's the 11th and the 9th. But 9/11. We were on a school trip to some just rock climbing, just basically get the kids away from their parents for a week shit. And my birthday was the Tuesday, and I remember waking up at 9, and all the teachers were happy, and we went to breakfast, and it was fine. And I got to open the presents that my mum had packed away. And then at around 12 or 1 in the afternoon, all of the teachers got silent. They just so quiet, and we're all on the bus, driving somewhere, and we're like, "Why are the teachers all upset?" They're listening to the radio. And we're like, why are they listening to the radio? None of us had the intelligence to listen to the fucking radio to hear what was going on. We're like, who knows? It must be her mum's dead, and they've said it on the radio. Mrs. Janet's mum's dead, and they've announced it on the radio. So, and the teachers were like, they did, because how do you explain 9/11 to a child?
Yeah.
So they just didn't do it. So they were like, fuck it. Not my problem. So I went back on the Friday. My mum and dad were like, "Hey, happy birthday. Here's the main present." Also, just so you know, there's going to be a minute's silence on your birthday for the foreseeable future because the world has changed forever.
Yeah, as long as they go, that was your birthday surprise.
Yeah. The worst thing was that's what I wished for. Of all the years I wished for a PlayStation and I didn't get one. The 1 year I wished for 9/11 and it happened.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm never going to forget your birthday, so that's a good thing. I'm not going to send you anything, but I will never forget it.
Never forget.
I was surprised to find that you were born in Kingston upon Thames. That's disappointed me.
Oh, it disappoints me every day too.
Yeah. But are your parents English or are your parents Scottish?
Scottish. So
okay. That's allowed then.
Mum's from East Kilbride and my father is from Thurso. They met at Edinburgh University and they fell in love. And they moved to London after graduating and they lived in a houseboat on the Thames. Now, you might actually know this. Do you remember a comedy club called Screaming Blue Murder?
I do, yeah, very much so. One of the first places I played.
That was right. So my mum and dad saw you do one of your earlier gigs because that was their local gig. So
okay.
So every single, whatever night it was on, they would go watch it all the time. They saw you, they saw Mark Lamar, they saw Stuart Lee, they saw fucking Don French, all the great ones from that time. That's why they love stand-up so much, and that's how they got me into it. So they're down there, and then my mum doesn't have a job at this point. She's got her PhD, and my dad's got his programming job. And then my mum, and they'll deny this, they accidentally conceived me. They'll be like, no, you were intentional. I wasn't, because they lived on a houseboat on the Thames. And if you intentionally, while unemployed, have a child while living on a boat, you're not allowed to be a mother. So I was born then down there, and then at the age of 4, I had a Cockney accent.
Right.
I was like, hello, mummy. Hello, daddy. What's going on here then? And my mum and dad were like, there's not a chance. We cannot. I'm not raising a fucking Tory. I'm not doing it. Getting back across the wall, getting back. No, his grandfather will never hug him if he sounds like that. And moved up to Fife when I was 4. And then went worse because I went to the Fife accent, which I don't know if you know, it's fucking nasal. I shit myself. Okay. And then I descended into this monotony.
Okay, I had the same because I was born in York. I'm from Yorkshire originally, and I had a very broad Yorkshire accent. But then at 4, I moved to Leicestershire. Then at 8, I moved to Somerset, and then I moved to London. And everything, and now I've got nothing. There's little bits of those accents hidden away in my actual whatever this is. But yeah, I was talking this to one of the guests recently. But I just said that I found an old tape of me singing the theme tune to "Wait Till Your Father Gets Home," which really won't mean anything to you. And broad Yorkshire accent. It's extraordinary. But that's what happens. We move around, destroy our heritage, but at least you've moved back and got.
What kind of accents do your kids have then?
I don't. Well, my son's only just started talking, so I don't think he's got an accent. It's a bit hard to tell with a kid. I don't know really. Nothing particularly.
Is there any accent that would put? Is there any accent that would put you off?
I mean, it'd be weird if they just picked up a different accent.
If they started walking around just speaking French. Bonjour, papa. I have picked up a little bit along the way.
No, I'm very good at accents, and I'm very open to any accent. That's my thing. That and ventriloquism. So
I saw.
It was good, wasn't it? It was amazing.
Very good.
My great granddad made that ventriloquist dummy, so I inherited that from my granddad, who inherited it from his dad. His dad was like, I think, a Methodist minister who used that
to spread the word of God.
Yeah, and now I use it to swear and look like I've had a mental breakdown.
I'm sorry. So in church, he was like, look, Jesus is a great guy, but don't let me tell you.
I don't think it would have been quite this frightening, like in 1890 when he made it, but it's not. There's a female one as well. They're called Ali and Sally Sloper. I think they're based on some cartoon of the time, but we found inside it rolled up. There's all these bits of newspaper from I think 1890, something like that. So that's how old he is. I should look after him better than I do, but at least he's still being used, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder what he would. I mean, how could he imagine this? But what would he think if that would be passed down to your great grandson? That's amazing. He's still got it. He'll still be, a whole century of the past will be in a third century, and he's using it to swear on the internet and being sexually assaulted by it. I'm glad he never lived to see that day.
Mainly because had he lived this long, he would have looked terrible. Jesus.
He'd be very old.
You've seen the state of the puppet. Can't imagine what he'd look like.
So, let's talk. Your mum was a massive help in. I know your mum's quite a big figure in the fringe, isn't she? But she was a big help in getting you into comedy in the first place. So she sort of, when you were, you'd shown an aptitude for comedy, I guess, by this stage.
Yeah, I'd shown
an interest in it.
Yeah, like I love stand-up. I always have.
Yeah.
And because my parents love it, because they watch all this live stuff. So my dad always had it. He would take me to the Fringe since I was about 5 or 6 years old, just watching street performers at first. But when I go older, start going to see any of the late night shows that I was allowed into, or the afternoon ones. And my parents were good. Like, they knew I wanted to try stand up and wanted to give it a go, but they were also very much of, hey, as a backup, you've got to get your grades first, make sure you do well in school. This isn't your job yet. And my mum, weirdly enough, Frankie Boyle ended up doing a corporate gig that my mum was at. And my mum is very confident. She's an extrovert. She's very friendly. She just did that standard mum thing. She's like, my son thinks he's a good. He thinks he's funny. He's a big fan of yours. You should teach him. And Frankie was kind enough to go, you know what, sure, here's my email address. And
wow.
So, 16-year-old me emailing Frankie Bob, asking him all these questions, like, how do you write jokes? What's the best way to do this? And Frankie's response was essentially along the lines of, I can't be arsed answering these, just come and hang out with me. So I got to hang out with him during the Fringe, and he introduced me to all these people. So that was like a good, and also helped me get my first gig at the Stand.
Right. Oh, that's good. It's nice that works. I don't want people trying that, though, so don't try that with me.
Don't. Oh, yes. So, yes.
Don't try. Don't get your 6. I'm not going to help.
I also don't pay it forward at all. I get emails all the time. Hey, Daniel, big fan. I know I'm busy. I can't. There's so many things going on.
But you do, you get emails like that, and I respond to them. But it is quite. Your mum must have done a good job on Frankie to make him
She has very large breasts, Richard.
Is that what it was?
And for the people that are like, that's a bit of an uncouth comment to say, allow me to explain. I know my mother has large breasts because I went to high school where I was bullied for the size of my mum's chest by both pupils and teachers. So it's not new information for me.
Well, if there's any mothers out there with very large breasts, then that's terrible. Frankie was a terrible, terrible man. So before I forget, let's talk about, we were talking about lockdown and gigs. Let's talk about the gigs that you've got coming up. This is in July for the people watching this in July.
Yes,
you've got coming up. So a few people have had this idea of doing drive-in comedy gigs. So can you explain to me what this is and how this is going to work?
Right,
and if it's going to work.
Who knows if it's going to work? This is as the guinea pig. Don't know. So I mean, we know drive-ins from American movies and stuff. Yeah. Especially horror movies. You drive your car in, it's on a big screen. You can tune into the radio, and you get to watch it from the safety of your own car, so you can canoodle and cavort with your date or whatever things. So they're doing that with stand-up. They've not just stand-up, but they've got a big cinema screen in the middle of this car park somewhere in London. People basically get to drive their car in, park in their space. Their radio station connects to a frequency which connects to my microphone. I'm also on the big screens. But they can also get out of their car, and on an app, I'm pretty sure they can order food and drinks. And there'll be some service. I don't know. It sounds so interesting. But gig-wise, I've got no idea, because normally, if you were to offer me a gig last year, in fact, Richard, if I was to approach you last year and be like, hey, do you want to do a gig at a car park to about, I don't know, maybe 250 people? They're spread out. The cars are at least 30 yards away. It's also outside. There's no cover. Do you fancy doing that? No.
How do they beep their horn to show they're laughing? Is that the idea, or do they?
Fucking hope not.
That's what I've heard people say that they're going to do. Well, otherwise you're getting no laughter, are you? Unless they're going to open their windows and stick their heads out and
Yeah,
laugh.
well, I think hopefully they'll sit outside and maybe you'll see that.
Sit outside the car.
Yeah, maybe they will. Maybe it'll just be like gigging to a bunch of fucking Autobots getting heckled by Megatron up the back. I don't know what to expect. I'm genuinely excited for it because if it does work and then I mean it's fucking, and then I get to work for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
I get to go back to some sort of job. The only problem is I would be very tempted as well to go and watch something in it. I'd like to see it from the audience perspective because as a performer, I think we get caught up in our heads so much about, especially when we can't hear laughter. Like, I don't know about you, but I especially, if you can't hear laughter, your timing gets fucked up, you get self-conscious about shit, you naturally speed up some of your material. Whereas if as a performer, I've watched people, friends of mine, have gigs that they didn't enjoy because they couldn't hear the laughter, but I still genuinely enjoyed it. And they come off stage with the same sort of like, oh, that was shit, it didn't go well. And from an audience member, I'm like, we all loved it though. So I hope that's what it is. And
well, you do get those gigs where you really felt there's, especially on a tour, you'll get like the exact same material, you're feeling doing the same, and just like not even a sound. You're not hearing a sound, and then you often go, to people and they go, "Oh yeah, we loved that. What a brilliant show, we loved it." And there was, the night before, people and cheering, and then just sort of silence.
It's one of
I'm kind of used to performing to not very many people not making that much noise, so it's all right for me. I think it'll be okay, and I think it's interesting. I think just getting that ability to be on a stage and just do it, I think you might find it's okay.
And also, man, we've done music festival gigs, and some music festival gigs, especially stuff like Festival and Latitude. Those gigs are brilliant, and those are technically outdoor gigs. So as long as we get that type of crew in. Also, I think another good that I know about this one is they've done the free tickets for NHS workers thing. Okay. So, I mean, there are people that I think at this point in time will laugh at anything.
And are there tickets for these still remaining? Can people come see it, or are you?
There are still tickets.
How do they find it?
If you go into the drive-in club, I should have the email. I'll find it. But the drive-in club.
Drive-in club. I think it's called. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool. And you're planning to do Edinburgh on your own, so that is
if
possible.
Yeah,
so
if Big Sturgy allows it, if Nicola herself gives us the nod, we'll.
Well, that's good. So that's some of the things that the people in August who are listening to this in August can possibly. Well, we'll see. I'm not. I'd be very surprised. My prediction is August. We're back indoors again.
Do you think
my
so?
Prediction. Yeah. I mean, certainly some of us. I think it's going to be. If they manage it well, it'll be like it is as we're recording this, that Leicester has been locked down. Dirty Leicester has been locked down.
Yeah.
But it's, you expect it of Leicester. That's fair enough.
Yeah. Who else? Be honest. Who else? We know with Leicester's gone down. Who else do we know is going to fuck it up?
Let me have a little think about. I think
I don't trust Leeds. They'll fuck it up.
I think Aldershot is definitely going down.
Yeah.
I think Aldershot might have had the coronavirus this whole time.
They were the epicenter that we didn't know about.
They've just been going for a long time. Wolverhampton. I mean, again, Wolverhampton, you wouldn't notice if it had been ravaged by an apocalypse. But yeah, there's a few places, and I don't know. I would. It would be lovely to think we're back in clubs and theatres by the autumn, but I just don't know if that's realistic, and whether and that's the things they're like to look. Every day they're tweeting this venue is laying off staff, and
that's the bit.
Will the venues be there when we come back?
Aye, that's the really, really horrible bit about it is like the arts that will suffer, the all these amazing little art centres that you used to get to play in all these wonderful theatres that are just going to deteriorate and then not be funded afterwards. They're just going to go into it's very, very sad.
It is very sad. Well, we'll see. I mean, will it work just that? I don't know. Will those buildings... Will someone else just buy? If everything goes to shit, will someone else just buy it and then employ everyone back again, or will someone come and go? Great, we'll turn Norwich Playhouse into a big themed restaurant and blah, blah, will is that how it will work? And is that why the government don't give a fuck, because they just think, oh, this will all get changed into something more profitable?
I mean, if you want to get to the like tinfoil hat, this is how bastards the government are. I absolutely think it is well within their interest to destroy anything that encourages free thought, free speech, anything that involves smiling. They're like, don't do that, because when people are happy, they get ideas. So I think they're loving it. The fact that the arts are dying, I think they think it's excellent.
Yeah. I'm sure you are correct. Let's ask you a couple of emergency questions. I'm gonna go for some new ones. I've been asking the similar ones all the time, so I am going to ask you. Okay, I'm quite obsessed with sex robots, and this just as we've come to a question about sex robots, but this is a quite an involved one. If there are ever sex robots, as any right-thinking person hopes, would they be self-cleaning, or would there be another small robot that would clean the sex robot? Or would there be a person whose job was to clean out the sex robot before the next person used it? And can you think of a worse job than that job?
Well, first off, straight off, I'm going to tell you that there absolutely would be people that clean the sex robots. And I guarantee you there are people that would fucking enjoy it. That would be their kink. I promise you, there are people out there who don't want to have sex with a sex robot. They want to be the ones to clean the sex robot. They want to be the one that gets to go in and collect the juices and the whatnots. Cleaning a sex robot, they would have to be self-cleaning. Because I mean, the vagina is self-cleaning, isn't it?
But like the vagina is much more complicated than any robot or anything else in this world. It's a wonderful mystery, isn't it? No, even science doesn't know how a vagina.
Yeah. They don't actually know where it is. They can't confirm it.
They don't know what it is. So I think it is a little bit self-cleaning, but I think. They do have to be clean. I think they have to be washed, to be fair. It's like your penis needs to be washed, Daniel, especially yours.
If you're cleaning, I would say for a vagina, it would probably have to have some sort of dump system. But then for
the robot, you mean? Or are you trying to improve the female?
No.
I think if I was God, I'd have had a dump, just pull a lever, dump just it.
Straight away,
and then if you really want it, a sort of suction thing that would pull it.
Like a syringe. You could just... If you're cleaning a sex robot that has a dick and you're cleaning the dick, at what point are you cleaning a robot, and at what point are you just wanking off a robot to not completion?
True.
There's a question for you.
That's a good question. There's another one. Yes, go on.
Right. So obviously with the female sex robots, they'll be programmed to fake their orgasms, much like normal women are programmed to do that as well. The male ones, would you reckon they would ejaculate?
I mean, I would hope. I expect so. Yes. I mean, I would hope so.
Is that would you reckon that's an important part of it, the experience, or do you reckon they would be like, oh, you know what, that's actually the worst bit?
I suppose that is interesting. I would say, obviously for the ejaculator, that is a very important part of it. I think for some people, the ejaculation is an enjoyable thing to witness and be part of. And be, partially covered in. I think some people will enjoy that.
Yeah, but like, would it? Because literally, if it was a sex robot with a dick, the button would literally just be round there. We're all aware of where that emergency button is. Because what would it be? It would have to be edible. Maybe they'd flavour it.
Yeah, probably. It wouldn't have to be, it could be nice.
Yeah.
Is that right? It could be just something nice rather than. But again, God has made an error. One of my other emergency questions is. It seems weird that God made. If you were gonna make ejaculate, you would make it taste nice, wouldn't you? What would you have ejaculate taste of if you could choose anything? I mean, I suppose if it tastes too nice, the danger is you just sit there at home, just making it into bowls and eating it,
or just getting high.
Then the human race runs out.
yeah. If it tastes,
so it's got to be a little bit horrible, but still nice enough.
You know what? I think the taste of it now is don't change the taste of it because.
Okay.
For those people that enjoy the taste of it, that's fine. And if they don't, they don't. To make it tastier, you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think if you were starving, how long do you think you could last if you were stuck in a situation where there was no food and you were trapped? How long do you think you could last just eating your own sperm? Did people try that, like on Alive? When they start eating each other, did they consider just wanking first and just eating that first? They could have done each other's.
Yeah, I think you could definitely, with the protein in it,
There's a lot of protein in there.
It would give you an extra couple of hours, maybe days. But the question is, it's only worth it if you know you're going to survive. Because otherwise, when they find your body, it's just filled with cum. They're like, we did the autopsy, and it was like a jizz pinata. He just recycled it over and over. And because if you drink your own pee over and over again, your pee changes color and it stops being nutrition. If you eat your own cum over and over again, does it stop being cum?
I don't think it swims back into your testicles, if that's what you're on. I think it does stop being cum.
No.
I don't think it can find its way home like a salmon. No. I think it comes out. I don't think it's recycled. I think it... But also, the question is whether the amount of energy you would expend in getting the sperm out is less than the amount of energy that the sperm would give you. That's the problem, I guess.
Sorry, I love the idea of salmon sperm now. Every time you ejaculate, just the sperm desperately trying to swim back.
We would die out. The sperm, if sperm had a homing instinct, we'd be in a lot of trouble because they'd just all be. Yeah. You'd come and then they'd all just jump out and try and leap out at you. It'd be very exciting. But again, the human race would run it. So there may be a planet where that happened, where people did that, and the sperm were homing sperm, but that race did not last to see the next day. Well, that's all very interesting. I'm glad we covered that. That was very important.
Yeah, science, get it done. Any doctors out there who would like to contribute to that?
So let's talk about this. I know you have talked about this a lot, but I'm interested in the numbers. Obviously, in your show Jigsaw, yep. You talked about it was about relationships, and you were I've seen you variously claiming to have broken up. Well, the highest figure I saw was 25,000 relationships. So the relationships is over 100,000 now, but it's that's hard to keep a tally of because I stopped. Once we got to, I think, 25,000, I stopped going into the DMs and stuff. And so it's been I'll still go in, count it up, but it's very much an estimate. The one that we can guarantee is, I think it's 177 divorces. Wow.
Yeah. I've got to in places, I've signed divorce papers that people have brought to the show saying, hey, I left my husband or I left my wife because of the show. Please sign this. It's such a surreal thing, man.
So, that wasn't the only aim of the show to destroy love.
No.
I mean, it ought to destroy love that wasn't working, I suppose, is what
was exactly my intention. My thing was, I'm not against love. I believe in true love. Only an idiot would not believe in it. My problem is I just believe that most people in relationships aren't actually in love. They've just forced themselves into there because we're so terrified of being alone. And I had been in a particularly toxic relationship that I'd come out of that had made me just like have all these doubts, and I hate myself. And I felt pressured to get into that relationship by everyone, my family, my friends, society. You have to be in a relationship, otherwise you're not complete. You have to be part of something, otherwise and I didn't like that, and I hated the fact that there were so many people out there who would. Who didn't know who they were, hadn't found confidence in themselves, and had this fucking pressure from everyone else to get into a relationship. And good people settled for less than they were worth. You had really, really nice people who were like, they would see their friend Debbie, who's going out with some cunt called Chris, and online Debbie saw, me and Chris had a great day today. We did this, and then we sat there going, Debbie hates Chris. Debbie, she texted me 5 minutes going, I hate Chris, he's a dick, but. Even though she hates him, she's still in this relationship. Therefore, having something must be better than having nothing. And it forced all these people into relationships. And when I forced myself into that relationship and then got out of it, I felt so much better. I discovered who I was again. And that relief I wanted to gift to other people. Not people not in happy relationships, but people in toxic relationships. Those relationships where the other person has made you dislike yourself so much that the only place you are able to get affection from is from them. And then it's a vicious cycle of a thing. This person teaches you and convinces you that you're fucking worthless, but then they still love you. And you're like, oh my God, I'm worthless, but they love me. What a hero, what a savior. And people in those relationships, it's cyclical and it's vicious. And when I got out of it, I was like, I have to help people in this situation.
Sure.
But it spiraled way more. way more.
I think it's interesting. There was definitely, there was times when I was in relationships where I wasn't happy, but I think when I realized I was in a good relationship, when I was in bad relationships, I was kind of secretly hoping my girlfriend would die so that I could
not break up
out of it. Yeah. That would be the way out, because I couldn't see a way out of it. But now I'm married, and I just wish I would die. So I think that's the that's the definition of love to me. So I want my wife to. I love her; she's amazing. But that'd be the way out. That's the only way out of it now.
Here's a very, very morbid question for you. Would you rather die first, or would you rather your wife die first? Who would deal with it better?
Well, I think I would probably deal with it better, but I do hope. I mean, she deserves to live longer.
Yes,
so she's a bit younger than I am, and she deserves to have a life. But I have to accept there's a very good chance that the person who sees my children in their 18th and 21st birthdays might not be me. It might not. She might have found someone else. But yes, it's a weird one. But yeah, I think but I don't think she would cope. I think I would have. Yeah, it's a weird thing to say, isn't it? I think I would cope with it better. I wouldn't be very happy. And once you've got kids in the equation, that's the thing you got to get. That's
who would deal with it.
It'd be too horrific for them, and just having to imagine that for them, but also very horrific for you to have to look after them.
Both my parents are still alive, and I don't want either of them to die. But when they do, my dad has to go first.
Yeah, my dad has to go first.
Yeah, if my dad dies, my mum will be so graceful. She'll cry. She'll have that single tear beside the graveside. She'll mourn, but for the sake of her 3 remaining children, she'll pull herself up and she'll be wonderful. My dad will deteriorate. He'll die in a day. He will just. He's been with this woman too long. He doesn't know how to. And not in a bad way, in a really adorable way.
Well, my mum and dad, but also my mum and dad are pretty, in their 80s now. But my mum still is very young and vivacious, and my dad is, I think my dad he's fine. But if my mum died, they've been together since they were 13 as well, so they've been together for 70 years. My mum and dad. And so like the idea of, that's just either of them like getting through that will be terrible. But yeah, my mum will get over him. Couple of years, fine.
That's why I reckon there should be an option. There should be an option for suicide pact in a hospital. Like if you've been married to someone for over 50 years, right, and they're about to die, there should just be an option on the thing going, take me with them. Like I just don't want, and people should be entitled to do that. Why on earth? Most of my life I spent with this amazing partner. I can't be arsed. Just take me out with them. Why?
Yeah, it's a beautiful romantic idea of old people murders. I think Harold Shipman had a similar idea.
So I'm in great company.
You're in great company. And they locked him away. He was just a dreamer.
He believed in true love. It's all he wanted. He didn't want there to be heartbreak in the world.
But it's weird, like, I think what I worry about that show is, like, relationships are very fragile. You just need a little bit of doubt in them. The other week, I think me and my wife have a pretty strong relationship. I really hope so. I never want to go back to dating again. And I love her, and I love my family, and the idea of not being with them is terrible. But I was, for another thing, I had a tarot reading last week. And she kind of said, the first thing she said, it was all very vague, and I have it as a cynic, and I don't believe it. But the first thing she said is, you feel your career's going round in circles, and one of my things I do at the moment is go around the field picking up stones and filming it. So I thought, well, that's definitely true. So maybe she's onto something. And then
she said, Hansel and Gretel.
And then she said, but on the relationship front, I think it's fair to say you're not in it with both feet, are you? And I went. I said, well, don't tell my wife that, because, I'm married with 2 kids, and, she went, no. And she still went, I sort of made a joke. She went, no, you're not, but you're not. And, and then having that, and then I told my wife, and thought she'd find it funny, but now every now and again she goes, oh, you're not in it with both feet, are you?
Yeah, you open it.
And then I'm thinking, am I in it with both? Maybe I'm not in it with both feet.
Oh, I can't believe you have a tarot reader.
Pardon?
I can't believe you have a tarot reader.
Well, I had to. Well, it was for a thing. So I had to do something that I would never usually do. So that was the thing I selected for this for this project I'm doing. But yeah, so but it's weird just having that seed planted can sometimes
but
create a doubt that isn't even there.
I have no doubt that I planted that seed in plenty of relationships that were fine and would have otherwise thrived and gone to better things. But I do not feel guilty about that because I categorically do not believe in the concept of the one. I think the concept that is so arrogant that there's only one person out there good enough for you. Fuck off. There's 9 people in this street good enough for me. Like it's so, if the real relationships, the strong ones, are the ones that will survive it. If a comedian can break up your relationship with a joke, wasn't that strong enough to begin with? And it was only the questions that I wished I had been asked and the doubts that I'd have in my head. Because I don't think doubt's a bad thing.
I don't think it is. And, I don't think it's a bad thing for people not... I think, like, in your 20s, I think especially, you're made to feel like you should be in relationships, and you're going to find someone you'll be with them forever. And people get married, and people... and it works for some people. But it's crazy. If I'd got married in my 20s, it would have been a disaster. And I think you need to make those mistakes. But also, I look back at my 20s and 30s, and the things that I did end relationships over, were quite small things. I think the thing, I can't even remember, but you'll be irritated by something, or there'll be something that annoyed you, or you just think, we had a big argument, so that's the end of the relationship. And then you get married, and then the things you have to ride through to go, okay. And you do get over, you have days where you go, God, you're at each other's throats and you hate each other for 30 minutes, and then you go for a walk around the field and clear some stones, and you feel a bit better.
But I think that's an important distinction in a relationship, because I've had those arguments in previous relationships with little moments. I had an ex-girlfriend who, and this is small, but it's like she would talk while the television was on. And and I know I shouldn't be focused on the television. But that's the thing. If she wants to have a conversation, I'll turn the fucking TV off and we'll have a conversation, right? What are we doing? Are we watching TV or are we having a conversation? Because I cannot do both. So you need to make a decision right now. She wouldn't. She'd be like, just watch and I'll talk to you. And I couldn't do it. That's a small reason. And that caused us to break up. My girlfriend now, if she spoke to the show, it would annoy me, but I wouldn't. It wouldn't annoy me to the ends of the earth, because when she talks to me, I'm actually fucking interested in what she has to say.
Well, that's the thing. I think, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about other people. I think people should... I mean, you're not even 30 yet. You're nearly 30, right? You're turning 30 this year. You're very... I mean, you're incredible. It's... I mean, your career is astonishing in that sense. I mean, you've been working for like 11 or 12 years, something like that, I guess, as a professional comedian.
Yeah.
But even so, that's the level you've got to, because you're. I mean, I don't think know people in the UK know to the extent it is, because you're playing in big theatres all around the world. You've been on all the American chat shows, Conan O'Brien. You're on all the time, and that's a pretty big deal that not many UK comedians have got to that level. I don't know whether do people know that about you, or is it just that I don't know that about you?
No, people know it. It's in the UK has its own. I
mean, you're doing very well in the UK, but I don't think that the level you're at in the world is higher than most comedians we would know in this country.
I am globally quite successful in the UK. I'm I'm more successful globally than I am in, but it's just England. It's just England. Scotland have always done well because they'll support their own. England's getting on board, and I don't mind that, because like with the English scene, the English comedy scene, with the British comedy scene, is exceptional at the moment. Like, it really, really, truly is, and that's why there's so much good stuff on television, and why the competition is much more fierce, and that's why I'm less known here. I was like, fuck it, I'll go be famous in Russia.
But there's a big, I get there's a big comedy scene in Russia of English speaking comedy, right? Because I've had. You're not performing in Russian, I'm presuming, or is it translated?
And it was translated, so we
was it? Okay.
Yeah, in Moscow. So some of them, the ones that were not fully fluent in English, had the show live translated in their ear, That was a weird gig because there was a delay.
Do you get to pick the guy who's doing the because the guy who's translating has to have a certain comic flair, surely, to pull it off?
No. So we didn't. But so before we get to Russia, I mean, they sent through the Russian government's like, right, what are you going to say? What are you going to say while you're in Russia? Now, the show I was doing my show X, which was about toxic masculinity and sexual assault and male complicity. And it just had a bunch of jokes in it, but they were like, write it all out and let us know what the topics are about. And I had some pro-gay material in there, and my thing was, I'm not cutting that out. Like I'm not. If I'm doing the full show in Russia, I'm not editing the show for you. If you don't want the full show, none of it's coming. So they sent this translator to come see the show when it was in Vienna, and we're paranoid as shit at this point. We're like, he's from the KGB. They've sent him to come and listen to the set, to go back to them, I mean, there's a very highly educated Russian man, fluent in like 7 languages. It was so interesting, so amazing. He knew the nuances between words and languages, and he was so good to talk to. The entire time he was talking, I'm like, you fucking KGB, I know what you're up to. You're texting Putin right now. You're like, he's doing pro-gay stuff. He's anti-sexual assault. He's all this. We got there and he translated. And it seemed to go well. They laughed. Mm-hmm. They laughed 3 seconds after I'd said the thing. So it was... but I don't know if he actually said the thing. He could have been making it up. Like, I could have been doing my bit where I'm like, and gay marriage is important and all this stuff. And he was like, and it's just he's talking about how great God is and how beautiful Jesus' beard was.
Oh dear. Well, that's very exciting. And yeah, I mean, I've had a few shows abroad, but other people doing them in different languages. It's a very weird experience. But yeah. Yeah, well, so there's one of your shows on Netflix now. I think a couple have been on, and X is on HBO. Is that right? So that's
there's Dark and Jigsaw are available on Netflix.
The two on both on Netflix.
X is on HBO.
So I watched Dark today, which is, I mean, I think it's it's a very interesting show. Which obviously you talk about your sister in this show, which is a very personal moment. But I think it's interesting that I'm interested in kind of the disability and the way comedy can, discuss disability. And you have this discussion in your show. Your sister was disabled with cerebral palsy, and I'm very fascinated with that because I've had big discussions about disability. I'm involved with Scope and I've had some run-ins with comedians about their disability material, which sometimes is good and sometimes bad. And there's obviously great disabled comedians, but is that idea that you some people feel you shouldn't even joke about that subject, and it's very well balanced, that part of the show, in terms of you're sort of tricking the audience a little bit, and you're talking about your sister in the present tense I
wanted them to go through. When my sister died when I was 8 years old, it was a shock. Man, my parents, I think they knew. When Josie was born, the doctors basically said that she would get 5 years, and she got 6. So my parents knew that she had a life expectancy, but I didn't. No. So when it was revealed to me that she died, man, it was a proper shock as an 8-year-old. Like I didn't know, and I wanted my audience to go through that because of the shock and because I had to deal with it. That's how I developed that sense of humor, because it was shocking. It was horrible to come to terms with it. I was sad, but there was still funny things happening. And even though that moment was sad, so much of my sister's life had been, she laughed all the time, man. It's all she did. And it was a laugh that fucking lit up a room. And I would go back into school, and for me, it's dehumanizing to say that you can't laugh at these things. Like, if you're making fun of disabled people, absolutely. If they're the victims of the joke, then, but that's the case for all jokes. If you're going, you, fuck you. But if they're incorporated in, to not laugh. Look, disability can be fucking hysterical because it's weird. Like, they're not in full control of their limbs. They're not, depending on the type of disabled, they interpret things differently. Josie would laugh at random points, the most inappropriate fucking times in the world. That's funny, and it's uncomfortable, and other people getting uncomfortable makes it funny. I just think it's so important to not if somebody says don't make fun of me, fine, absolutely. But I do not agree with don't make fun of them. If somebody doesn't want to be made fun of, they go, me, don't do that, and then we'll not. But this idea of you shouldn't make fun of these people, I'm like, those people can tell me.
Yeah. And I think also it's valid for you yourself to cope with something terrible in your life via humour, right? Which not everyone has to do that. Not everyone has to have jokes about a relative dying or whatever. But if that helps you, and it obviously helped you, and I don't know where Robin Ince, obviously, I don't know if you've read his recent book about what makes comedians comedians, but he has this, as that observation that a lot of comedians have lost a mother or a parent or a sibling or whatever in childhood, and that whether that, I mean, a lot haven't as well, obviously, but whether that is the catalyst that turns them into comedians, or whether you would have been a comedian anyway. But
I think so.
Yeah.
I do agree with the tragedy. There's different ways they react to tragedy. You can go to humor, or you can go the other ways. I also should clarify, I don't think the other ways are bad. One of the things people often get wrong is if your way of dealing with a tragedy is to laugh about it, that's absolutely fine. Other people's way might not be. So if you make a joke about something, let's say your mate's granddad died, right? And you make a joke about it to try and make them feel better, right? And you make the joke, and the other person gets upset. You don't get to be angry at that. You don't get to be like, it was just a joke. Yes, it was just a joke. Your intention wasn't to upset them, but the consequences were that you did. And that's the bit you have to deal with.
Yeah. Well, it's, but comedy's all about context, isn't it? And that's what, freedom of speech is all about context. And these people saying you're not allowed to say anything. You're not allowed to say some things in certain situations, and you would accept that. You'd accept that about other. There's things when it's inappropriate to start shouting.
We all know not to yell the word bomb in an airport. We all know that you don't yell bomb in an airport. You can, but there are consequences to it.
Yeah. But you've been you're interested in covering the big subjects, and you've talked about being unsuccessfully groomed. That was it, and you're talking about masculinity in the show X, and talking about Me Too and things like that.
So dealing with one of my close friends was sexually assaulted by one of my other friends. Obviously, he's not a friend anymore. That goes out saying, but it's about as a man, most of my stand-up is the reason I talk about dark subject is because I'm an idiot, and I'm slow to learn things. So I try and get the audience on my slow pace, going, "Hey, right, this is how I arrived at these conclusions." I'm not a great person, and especially with the show X. With the sexual assault of my friend, realizing how absolutely complicit I had been in it, the realization that I could have done more, that I was, if I'm being honest with myself, probably willfully ignorant about a lot of his behavior. And there's all these things that I definitely 5 years ago would have been a hashtag not all men person. That would have been me, because I understand the logic of, but I didn't, so why am I? And it wasn't until I went through this that I stopped being a not all man person, because I fucking realized, hey, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. But I know for a fact that I didn't do for it enough. I know for a fact that there were warning signs that I ignored, or that I chose to just see the best in him as opposed to what other people were telling me. I was complicit in all of this fucking shit. And I know that now. Now, instead of just yelling at men, because and don't get me wrong, I understand it's nice to yell at us sometimes. As a man, I know I react so poorly and so viscerally to being yelled at, and that I should be better at it. But if I get yelled at, I stop listening. And the only reason I changed my opinion over these years is because all of these things happen, and that's how I like to explain things. Instead of going, you should believe this, it's going, I used to think this, and then that's how I got there. So that way, even if the audience disagree with me, they understand my thinking. And I think that's so important, especially nowadays. People only tell you their conclusions and not how they arrived at them. And it's such an important bit of the discussion. Yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, I think the thing with the men and the crisis in masculinity, and the book I've been writing is, I've been thinking about this a lot. But I think men are the only group I can think of who accept the stereotypes about them that I just don't think are true of most of us, right? And you know, certainly, and there's a very negative stereotype of men, and there's an element of it that's true, as with many stereotypes. But basically, it's a very aggressive, and yet men prop it up, and men actually, all these men who are angry about not all men or International Women's Day or Black Lives Matter, they're directing their anger at exactly the wrong people. They're directing their anger at the people who, you know, because a lot of men, you know, I can understand that a lot of men are looking, going, well, my life isn't great. You know, we talk about the patriarchy, but I don't have a great life. But the patriarchy is actually, you know, crushing. It's the patriarchy that's crushing these men, and they're supporting it because of this stupid code of masculinity or whatever, or they, you know, that they have to stick together with men, while this elite of men who are benefiting it from all are just sort of, you know, they're the nerdy guy who wants to be in the gang, all those guys, and they're just being laughed at as well. And so if they knew, I think if they could just make that realization that the enemy isn't immigrants or black people or women, it's the immigrant, it's the enemy is the elite that's keeping the system, and what they don't understand is equality means equality for everyone. So, you know, you fight against, International Women's Day wants equality, but what about where men are not equal? Yeah, that would be sorted too by the equality thing we talk.
Yeah.
So, you know, but it's I think it's very interesting to hear you say the things you said and the things you said in your shows. Also, I was listening to your latest podcast with Kai Humphries, which is great. But, you know, you're talking about the Black Lives Matter thing, but it's interesting to see two guys working it out, right? I think, you know, and again, Kai being, I think, quite honest about his journey to realizing where he'd been wrong in the past about those sort of things and getting there. And, you know, and I know Kai a little bit, and like he's a very regular, he's a regular kind of guy, the kind of person you say that's the kind of people, you know, if you were a patronizing idiot, you might go, he's that kind of guy. He's not. He's a very yeah, but he's a very thoughtful, intelligent guy, and he has come to the correct realization about
and it took a
Black
while.
Lives Matter. Yeah,
but I think that's what happens so much is there's a learning process. There's the before you arrive at the conclusion, there's the conversation that happens. And as someone specifically who doesn't know a lot of these things, these conversations where I'm trying to learn are fucking slow, and they do need, and I get it. It must be so frustrating for women just going, how have you not at this fucking point in time? You've been on this planet for 29 years. How are you only just learning these things? Because I'm a privileged piece of shit. And I only became aware of it 4 years ago. So there's this process of learning to understanding that you're privileged doesn't mean that your life is inherently better than everyone else. You can still benefit from privilege and still have a shitty life. Like I think it's important to have these conversations instead of offering everyone your conclusion, going, this is right, this is right, this is this, going, hey, we all agree here, we all agree here, we all agree here, and we all arrived at the same conclusion together. Because then you're teaching people how to think, not what to think, how to think.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think nearly everyone who's complaining about nearly everything is sort of on the same side, and they've been divided. It's divide and conquer, and there is this, you know, propensity with social media to be furious, to come in furiously against.
You say something, and they go, "Oh, so you must think this." And you go, no, the words I said, the ones that left my mouth, are the ones I meant.
But funnily enough, you know, making a comment and then having 50 people come and berate you. And I've had it from both sides of most arguments, because you're a comedian, you'll say cheeky things one way or the other, or you'll question something. I've had it. If people are berating you, your immediate feeling is, oh, you know. So whatever you think about those arguments, and you know, I'm pretty sure I know what the right side of that argument is now. But whatever you think, if you're trying to convince people, you don't fucking go at them like they're a maniac and an idiot. You try and convince them that your argument is right with some facts rather than some...
And also, and empathy.
Yeah.
Go, hey. It's like if you were to see you know, you got to talk to people like you talk to kids. And I say this as somebody that needs to be spoken to like a child sometimes. Right? Hey, don't kick that cat because it's sad, because that's a bad thing to do. And so especially it's not, I've just almost did what we said we shouldn't do. I was about to say a lot of men. I think a lot of men, because maybe emotionally were a bit more closed off with it until later. I certainly didn't start being good with my emotions until I was about 21 or 22. Like, I actively stopped myself crying. If I ever caught myself crying, I'd be like, no, you don't. No, that's girls cry, men don't cry. And it took having conversations with other men, patiently taking their time to go, hey, let's slowly talk about your emotions, and leading me to a conclusion as opposed to forcing it there, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, sure. It was interesting, but then, that I think when comedy does that, and I think it's very interesting. You're covering those big subjects, and I think a lot of people wouldn't, want to talk about it.
I think my opinion on these things is not necessarily right, and but I'm not coming out with any stonewall conclusion from it. Like, I'm absolutely part of whatever most problems are. I'm probably part of it, right? And it's learning that, and then also making sure that going, okay, I know that, and passing that information on, so that just empathetic discussion is dead in the world now. People can't.
But I hope it's sort of changing. I think it might change. I mean, I think all this stuff that's happening at the moment that is largely a big positive step. I hope. I think it's real. It is empathy, but it's also the realization. I think it is that you've got to take things. Sadly, you've got to take things like a little bit slowly, and then every now and again you need to go, no, this is going too slowly. Yeah. Let's throw this statue in the harbour to move this along a bit and see where it is.
Let's keep this argument up,
because this one's been going on a bit. 400 years is probably long enough. It's good to be covering these big subjects. Look, we're running out of time. So is that these drive-in clubs? Is this week? It's this weekend, isn't it?
Yes, this weekend.
So if you want to go and see some live comedy in London, is it all in London or is it in
London? If you go to the drive-in website, they've got movies on. They've got an actual drive-in thing. They've got stuff for kids, and they'll be expanding. So it's all available. And
maybe something in Edinburgh if you can.
Hopefully.
But we can do something online. People in Edinburgh will sort of happen, I think.
I think there'll be something. Like, I'll stand on the Royal Mile with a YouTube video of someone juggling, and then if everyone can give me 20 quid, that's spot on. Okay. I also have a book coming out on the 3rd of November.
Okay, good. What's that about?
It's called Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die.
That is very true.
And yeah.
Well, that's going to make. Well, we'll look out for that. Thank you very much. Good luck with everything. I hope we're back in the clubs and on tour and around the world very soon. In Russia again soon. Thanks very much for your time. We'll be back next week with Joe Caulfield. Next week, if you go to richhain.com, you can click on my face and find out who the upcoming guests are. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The amazing Daniel Sloss. Thank you. See you. Goodbye. See you very soon, everyone. Goodbye.
How'd you like them sky potatoes?